Okay, welcome to a breakdown video, a BTS video of a night shoot commercial video that I did for EcoCourt Athletics. It was just kind of a fun idea that I threw together with some friends. My buddy Chris has recently dove into making these hats and they are super nice. So I wanted to try to create a story specifically at night to use both of these and see how the Sony FX30 actually performs in low light. And it was also testing the new SLR Magic micro primes. So I want to take you along the entire production route from start to finish. So let's get to it. So the first thing I did to grab inspiration was head over to FrameSet. And if you've never used FrameSet before for any sort of pre-production or inspiration, I highly recommend going on and checking through. You can pretty much type anything you want. So here I'll just type in night car and you can see already great inspiration in starting to craft some visuals. So I searched through a bunch of frames here and I made my own set. I just kind of used this for the overall tone and some of the lighting cues like this guy. And these are some of the shots that I really wanted to grab, like outside the car with some negative space on here, some inside driving shots as well, and just some other inspo like this and like this. So this is the original set that I used to send to the guys and just pitch to be like, hey, are you down to create something in this tone with these sort of shots? So from there I went and created kind of a little deck into a storyboard. So these were my main lighting references of other things that I found and productions that we've actually done. Then I made this deck as a storyboard to send to the guys to kind of give a breakdown and work backwards so we could actually create the shot list for the night. So the story that I kind of came up with here is creating kind of a fake drug deal almost. So something that is high tension, high stress, but then you get to the climax of it all where these two people meet and they exchange this bag that is presumably money or drugs or something, and it turns out the hats are the goods. So I thought that was kind of playful and funny, and I kind of wanted to run with that idea. Seemed really short and easy to make, and that was kind of the driving factor as well. So I wanted to open on some of these abstract shots to not know what we're going into, and then drive right into the car so you can really feel the internal stress and urgency that's happening. And then the car comes into this parking lot and now we're in this sort of waiting era here where the main character is just kind of sitting, waiting, impatient, not knowing what's coming next. And from there, we have this shot that my buddy Nolan came up with that starts on this kind of profile shot and the camera's attached to the door. And then it reveals this two shot. So the door actually swings open and the camera is mounted to the door and reveals Chris, and he's holding the duffel bag ready to interact. And then we have some other minor coverage of reveal of the glowing bag, some close-ups and pulling it out, and then ending frame on the main character wearing the hat. So he'd be wearing the hat in this zone, or what I ended up doing was just having the hat right in corner, and it would just ended on a close-up and a logo. So this was the general idea that I wanted to capture, but we throw ideas on the day and we mold it to the time that we had on set and work together to create the best thing that we could with the time that we had. Okay, so when it came to the actual production, there was a total of 4 of us on set and we only used maybe 2 or 3 lights the entire time. Just a tube light, aperture MC, and the aperture light bulb, aside from some street lights as well. So at the beginning of the spot, I actually filmed a macro shot of a text message coming up on screen to act as a riser. We get this quick cut scene and now we know that we're driving, we're going somewhere, there's an urgent energy around it, and now we meet our main character in the car trying to frantically go somewhere. So these car mounted shots were done with a small rig suction cup. Don't tell anybody, but we only have 1 point of contact. Here's our frame. I would suggest 2 points of contact at the very least. Because the FX30 is so light, I really didn't have any worry. I am actually really impressed with the small rig suction cup. This is by far one of my favorite shots to do, is put a tripod in the trunk of a car. I don't know, there's just something that I really like about it. So you can see this light that comes across here. That was just actually Chris with a tube light waving in the background.
This definitely is not the right way to do this.
When you're getting out of the car, it's pretty much you park it get out of the car with the bag, and then walk right to the back of Spencer's car and just standing there, kind of ominous.
Okay.
Kind of almost like a very Slender Man kind of situation.
So this is the shot that I was talking about that actually is mounted onto the window, and then I just kind of move with the door. Nolan actually opened the door, so that was a real movement, and then I just focus pulled with my hand and tried to do my best here. This is us deciding what color should come out of the duffel bag to reveal the hats, and we use the aperture light bulb with the Sidus link to control the bulb. We tried using just a warm white, but ended up landing on a green because it was one of the brand colors and actually showed up pretty well on camera. I thought this little story built a lot of tension and then kind of ends in a comedic relief, and I really liked that. I'm really happy with how everything came together. I think we shot around 3 hours to get all that footage, and then I just really worked in post to kind of craft a story. The biggest thing that I tried to do was let the footage kind of dictate the pacing. I find a lot of times I just cut to the beat, and it was important for me to kind of start the edit without music and then dive in and get a vibe of the music and start matching up the cuts. Okay, let's dive into the edit a little bit here. Sound design to me was a really crucial part of this edit. In the beginning when I was sharing it, I think it was really actually weak without the sound design, and I didn't actually know how to fix it. And then I started adding the sound to kind of get a better feel, and it completely changed the way I thought about the piece and the flow and pacing as well. So I want to show you, to start, what the piece actually looks like without the music. So if you actually listen closely, I've added in all the beats that the music is already giving. So I'm just building on those cues. So in this instance, on top of car sound effects, I've actually added a heartbeat sound effect on all the music cues as well. I'm cutting from the same shot here, but I'm using a sound effect to really emphasize the dramaticness of that cut. Right before he's gonna open the door, I actually fade out all the music you can see on this top track here, and then we're just in the moment. I thought that this was stronger than just carrying the music track through and letting the moment really breathe. So if we back up a little bit without the music, just a lot of risers, essentially. And then throughout this segment, I used Brahms and the heartbeat to give me something to cut to. I find it very difficult to cut to nothing, and I think that's kind of my problem with pacing. So I wanted to motivate the cut by adding that sound effect when I thought it was needed. And it's also it sounds scary, so I liked it. One last thing here I want to cover is how important logo animation sound effects are. When you're looking at something and you hear something, it adds this other layer that what you're looking at now has some sort of texture, and you have some reference point to what it feels like, or obviously what it sounds like. At least that's kind of what happens to me. So this text here to me looks sort of looks sort of futuristic. It's dark. So I used electronic sounds to bring that out, because to me that's what it felt like. There's no hard fast rules in making sound effects. It's just kind of the overall vibe and tone. I watch everything that's happening. So on one pass I would just be looking for Foley to be what's happening in this scene? He's opening a door, he's unzipping a bag, great. And then on another pass I would go and be what sound would the hat make coming out of a bag? Obviously not a church gates of heaven sound, but that's what it feels like in that moment. To me, that's the zone that you get to have fun in, because it really becomes your piece, or it takes on a life of its own in that environment. Lastly, I just want to look at the color. I'm really not a colorist at all, but I was happy with how this came out. So let's just jump to the end here. I basically used you can tell I'm not a colorist by the 4 nodes or 5 nodes that I used. I used a Rec 709 LUT. My go-to Rec 709 LUTs are the Phantom LUTs. I use them for both Canon and Sony. Absolutely love them. Can't recommend them enough. Look at this. Look how far that goes. Just in one LUT, and the colors look good. For this, I tweaked the color balance Then I added a power window to kind of lighten the cap, the front of the cap, and then the reverse of the power window, darkening, and just some gradients on the sides. So that is before and after. And if we jump into the timeline segment, I have started to use kind of a timeline color grade to make each piece that I do cohesive. So at the end, I'll go through and I'll add like a very subtle grade on top of everything using the timeline. So here I converted into Cineon. Then I used the Kodak, well, I'll tell you which one, the Kodak 2383 D55 LUT. You can see it kind of just like changes the tones in which direction they're pushed. Then for halation and grain, you can see I used Dehancer. One of my favorite things about Dehancer is the film compression. If you look at the highlights, it really just brings it down. This shot is maybe not the greatest example. Then I added another Fuji LUT here, and I dialed this one down to 1%. And this just shifts more of the blues and the reds. In the final, I just add a really small sharpening node. Usually I turn it to 0.49, 0.48 in this case. I don't think I added any noise reduction here in any of these pieces. And that's pretty much the entire scenario. You can see how much this is with the timeline stuff on. So there's already like a little bit of color coming through. That's completely flat. Timeline, flat. So let's add some color balance, some curves. And this is, I believe, a neutral LUT from Phantom again. So this is just darkening this. Power Windows is my best friend right now. So I would do one pass here and then one pass here, and it creates just this kind of zone that now we're like looking that drives here. Is it a great color grade? I don't know. Subjective, I think I did good for what I had, especially not knowing what the heck I'm doing. I'm pretty happy with how the colors turned out. I'm really surprised at that base 2500 ISO. That's pretty much what I shot this entire thing at. Sure, we got noise here, but that's bound to happen when it's complete darkness. But when you put a little bit of curves and then add some grain to it, it just kind of all blends in. That's why I didn't do any noise reduction, is because I knew I was just gonna add grain on top of it. So I figured it might just blend in. And to my luck, that is what happened. So pretty much the entire thing is just color graded with a handful of nodes and really relying on that top layer for the timeline. Okay, that pretty much covers everything. Thank you for watching. Now let's dive in to the full piece in full screen. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you like this kind of thing, and I'll see you in the next one.